What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the FansToys spoiler and the X-Transbots Crackup, both versions of a Masterpiece Breakdown. So these both came out in 2019. This was early in 2019. This was late in 2019. But both basically in the same year. And I actually thought I had already done one of these. And my friend Brandon Johnson, aka Epic Disaster, he has his own channel and he's the official reviewer for the Chosen Prime. He said, "Hey, when are you going to do that comparison?" And I was like, "I already did the comparison." And I went and looked and tried to find it and I couldn't find the comparison. So that made me realize I better go do this. So here's the official comparison from my channel. As always, I do these because I want people to be able to decide which direction they want to go. These are both very, these are going to cost a lot of money when you get to the end of the set. Obviously, FansToys is going to be more expensive, but at the end of the day, this is really for people who haven't really decided which direction they want to go, or maybe they haven't purchased either of these yet. But we're going to take a look at these and compare them. If you already own this one or that one and you're happy with it, then you win. So hopefully I help you here try to decide which direction to go. But with that being said, let's get started. We're going to start off with accessories. The accessories you get with both of these, pretty much exactly the same. They both come on the gun. I can't tell if the FansToys is painted or not. This is casted in this blue metallic. And then they both come with a face. Both faces are painted very nicely. The FansToys one has an open mouth, whereas the X-Transbots just a closed mouth. But you get basically the same thing, so they're equivalent in terms of accessories. They also both come with their collector's card and instruction manual. So we're going to call those even on accessories. All right, next let's talk about the Sculpt. So Sculpt, of course, is very subjective, but let's put the G1 cartoon here so you can take a look. And they are both pretty good to the G1 cartoon. Take a quick 360. A lot of people have said, hey, he's too skinny. I don't mind. I think it's fine. I like the clean back. He's got a very clean back. The X-Transbot's not bad either. That's pretty clean. It's got a little bit of backpack there, but overall they're both fine. FT does have this, but it's on the back of the legs. I don't mind too much. But overall, both of these look really good to the G1 cartoon. FansToys tends to take a little bit of liberty with the overall sculpting and paint. So for example, it's painted these two circles here, whereas on the X-Transbots, the circles are there, they're sculpted in, but they're not painted. So that's just some of the little differences that you get with FansToys. Then you get this, translucent piece here with some detail behind there. The cartoon never had any detail like that. That is totally a liberty that FansToys has taken. I personally really like stuff like that. I love little details like that when they, take the extra effort. Again, that's not in the cartoon, so when you look at the X-Transbot, you'll see this whole chest area is very, very accurate. It's got a really, really good look. Now, the colors is another story. This cream color in some images, some stills from the cartoon, it was actually this color. In others, it was more this off-white color. So I can't really tell you which one is more accurate in terms of color. So I'm going to give them kind of a tie on that in terms of the color. But the sculpt wise, I really enjoy the FansToys. The extra mile they go to give you this look. Now, is that to say that's accurate? No, not really. I think actually X-Transbots are more accurate. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is the size. So let's bring in a figure for comparison. So here they are with a Masterpiece Megatron from Takara Tomy and also Masterpiece Blue Streak from Takara Tomy. And here's where things get kind of wacky, right? What's the right scale? If you look at it with Megatron, he does seem a little bit small. Again, this is eye of the beholder, and it also depends on what frame of the cartoon you look at. But then when you look at the Carbots, should these be the same size as the Carbots? And is this too big? Let's just bring him out of the way for a second. Is Spoiler too big to fit in with these, right? He kind of looks like a giant next to these other guys, but they're both the same size cars. It really depends what frame of the cartoon you look at. But I tend to think that X-Transbots looks a little bit better, fits in and scales a little bit better with the existing Masterpiece line, especially with the Carbots. So when it comes to Sculpt, it's kind of a toss-up for me. I can't really pick a winner here. The colors are one thing of concern. I don't really like this cream color, but then some of the liberties here are taken, and also the size of the robot mode for FT is a concern for some people, as well as how it fits with the existing Carbots. So because they both have some issues in terms of the way they look, but they both look really good next to the cartoon, I'm going to give them a tie in terms of sculpt. Next we're going to talk about the paint, and this is going to be pretty much no contest here, but we got to talk about it. On the X-Transbots, you've got white paint here on the front. I believe blue paint on this part here. Blue paint on the die-cast feet here. I believe there's some black panel lining. I guess I'll count that as paint. And then on the face. And that's really, honestly, it. All of this looks like molded plastic, so it does have some metallic sheen to it, but I don't believe it's painted. Maybe wrong on that, but there is some little details here and there. And we'll see more in the vehicle modes, where as we go to the FansToys, it's basically 100% painted. So all of the arms, legs, waist, thigh, shins, feet, head, chest, everything is painted on this all the way around the entire figure. The only thing that's not painted is this red hood here, which I believe it's also not painted on the X-Transbots, but just covered in paint everywhere. So no contest on the paint. We're going to give that to FansToys. All right, next we're going to talk about the build. So again, a little subjectivity here, but when it comes to just the solidity and you know how robust it feels, they're very different. They're very different. And honestly, when this one came out, I praised it quite a bit because it was a lot better than what X-Transbots have produced in the past. It felt more robust, felt more sturdy. You know, nothing really was loose, and it was kind of easy and fun to transform. Not easy, but it was fun to transform. And overall, just a pretty good hit for them in terms of a figure. And no real issues across the entire figure. There's a little bit of clearance issue in the car mode. We'll talk about that when we get there. But as far as the robot mode's concerned, really nice. There is some, I guess we'll talk about a little bit more when we get to articulation. But there are some issues with articulation that we'll talk about. And that does kind of bleed over to build. So they used these little pieces here to lock in the shoulders. And it just doesn't feel great. I mean, it feels fine. It's die cast, but as you're rotating and moving, it tends to pop out, and it's just irritating to work with. So, but I'm not going to count that against them here in terms of the build. But then you pick up this thing, and this game, if FT had the advantage of coming out second, but it's just a solid lump. It's solid die cast. It feels really good in hand. Everything, it plants really well. Mostly because it's die cast on the legs, but nothing feels cheap on it. Everything is solid, and I get that die cast isn't necessarily always better, but in this particular case, it just feels solid. I mean, the legs, and the body, everything just kind of tabs together and stays together, and it just feels good. So some of the ratchets are some of the hardware is a little bit different as well. So we'll talk about that. So you have ratchets on the arms there, nice and secure. You have, let's see, I think you have ratchets on the legs, and you have a waist swivel. We'll talk about that when we get to articulation. Over here, this is just friction joints, so a lot less hardware on this as well. So that's another reason why I'm going to give build to FansToys. It just is more solid. It's got better hardware. Now I'm going to talk about our articulation. So we're going to start with FansToys. I'm going to go through the full articulation just so you can see it all. So head is on a rotating swivel. So it goes up to there, down to there, and rotates all the way around. You get a ratcheted shoulder all the way around up to there. It is a little bit hindered, but if you move this out of the way, I tend to store it kind of on the side like that. That allows you to move it without any hindrance at all. Rotation at the bicep, double jointed elbow up to there. Rotation at the wrist, individually articulated fingers at the two joints, just like FansToys always does. A rotation at the waist. No ab crunch there, a little bit of disappointment, but I'm okay with it. Two hip skirts here in the front and the back, all the way up to there on a ratcheted joint. Back to here on a ratcheted joint, a little bit hindered. And then out to the side, also a little bit hindered. can kind of get it out if you rotate it up, so you can still get them out. Rotation at the thigh, double jointed knee all the way up to there. Ankle tilt all the way up to there, and ankle pivot all as well. And then we take a look at the X-Transbots. So X-Transbots, same thing. You got a rotating swivel here, so it gets down to there, up to there. Pretty much the same articulation on the head. You get a rotation at the shoulder, but it's a little bit hindered because of this backpack kind of gets in the way. And also this thing tends to pop up. I talked about that earlier, and so the whole thing kind of comes on transformed. You got to pop this back in there. And that's actually one of the biggest annoyances in terms of the articulation on this figure, is when you go to articulate the shoulder, it sometimes pops that up. Rotation at the bicep, double jointed elbow, rotation at the wrist, single pin for the hands, rotation at the waist, pretty nice ab crunch there, and you can actually get all the way around if you lift that up. If you have it, it's a little bit hindered if you don't have it up, so you can get it rotated more if you lift it up. Okay, you get a hip skirt here, and leg goes up to there on a friction joint, back to there on a friction joint. For some reason, a soft ratchet out to the side. I thought we've moved past this in the modern day figures. Rotation at the thigh, single jointed knee gets you up to there. It's hindered by all the back stuff here. Ankle tilt, although it is a little bit hindered by this, but you can get it pretty far. And then a toe tilt. No ankle tilt this way, but you have a toe tilt and a heel spur tilt if you need it. I'm not sure how you'd use it. But because he's got less articulation in the hands, in the shoulders, because of this especially, the feet and the knees, I'm going to give articulation to FansToys. He does have the one joint over FansToys right here. He's got that ab crunch, but everything else loses in terms of articulation to FansToys. We're going to give it to FansToys. Next, we're going to talk about engineering and transformation. So when this first came out, I thought to myself, wow, you know, X-Transbots have really improved their transformation and, you know, the smoothness of it. Because a lot of their figures in the past had been kind of an irritation to transform. It looked good in both modes, but it was always, you know, near breaking as you transformed it to the other mode. And this one doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like it's going to break, and it feels kind of nice, and it's kind of fun. The FansToys, on the other hand, is a little bit difficult. It's a little challenging, especially getting it out of vehicle mode back into robot mode. There's a lot of really tight panels. You need a spudger. This is definitely a spudger queen for sure. You got to have one of these to get it apart, because all the panels are really tight because it's painted. It's fully painted, so a lot of that paint sticks and causes a little bit of frustration. But in terms of the transformation, what is really impressive, and we're going to see this when we get to the vehicle mode, is these guys are the same size roughly in vehicle mode, which is very interesting because you can obviously see they're different heights in the robot modes. So because of that feat, I think I'm going to give engineering to FansToys, because it just amazes me how they're able to get to this size robot and bring it down to the size of the same, you know, Autobot car, basically, right? The scale of MP cars. That really is impressive to me. But as far as transformation, I do find this transformation a little frustrating. There's a lot of little pieces and panels, and some of it's kind of tight, and actually it tends to hurt your fingers trying to get some things out, and that's why you need a spudger. So even though I'm giving engineering to FansToys because of the creativeness and just the amount of engineering behind it, I'm going to give transformation to X-Transbots because I think it's just more fun, and it's just easier and simpler, and it's more intuitive. So they're going to split engineering and transformation. They are in their vehicle modes, and both look really good. Obviously, the guns do mount on the top there in both figures. We'll just take that off. Just want to show they do fit. Both have a slot for that. And here they are from all the way around. let's put the G1 cartoon in there so you can see that. And honestly, I think the color on the FansToys is a lot closer than this cream color, but that is definitely subjective. There are some features on the FansToys version. We're going to talk about those features, but they both look pretty darn good. And the X-Transbots went a little bit even further with that Lamborghini logo. It doesn't actually say Lamborghini, it's just a yellow triangle, but it looks good. Now, let me just show you the quick features. Some of them are actually hard to get to, but you do have some extra features on the FansToys. So the FansToys doors are actually scissor doors that open up, which is pretty nice. You can open up both doors. So both doors open. There's nothing to see inside. You can also, you've got to get to the right spot, but you can pop up this headlight. And let's see if I can get it. Here we go. Just barely lifted it up. So there's a headlight. So you can get nice headlights on this one. Translucent. That looks really good. The X-Transbot doesn't have that feature. It does have these front headlights, but it doesn't have those pop-ups. So nice little feature there, an add-on. But all in all, I really think FansToys just nailed the vehicle mode. Let's take a quick comparison here. Here they are with the Masterpiece Plus smokescreen. They both look good. They're pretty much the same same length. The FansToys is a little bit wider overall in the vehicle mode. About the same height, maybe a hair taller, but they both fit in very well with the existing Masterpiece car line. But this is what's really mind-boggling about the FansToys, right? It's that this is one other issue. Spoiler tends to pop off. But the fact that it gets down to this size and pretty much fits in with Masterpiece car bots of this scale, but yet the robot is so much bigger, that is a engineering marvel to me. And so I did already give engineering over to FansToys, but this just confirms it, that, man, it looks so good in vehicle mode, and yet it converts into that larger robot. So we're going to give the alt mode to FansToys. I have no contest here for me. Anyways, this is a better alt mode. All right, the final factor here is cost, and these cost is quite a bit different between these two. So the FansToys comes in at $105 retail, at least US retail, and the X-Transbots comes in at $50. I know there were other prices out there. I'm going by the retail prices in regular American retailers like TF Source. So I don't really go by, deals or special purchases that you made. And so they are different by double, right? The FansToys is double the price, but I think this is still a reasonable comparison to make. They're both Masterpiece breakdowns. They both become part of a combiner. They're both trying to be quality Masterpiece scale, Masterpiece style robots. So just because they're different in price doesn't mean we should compare them. But because the X-Transbots comes in at half the price, it's going to win on cost. Final thoughts wise, you can see the score, and you can see that FansToys takes it by quite a bit. And one thing I didn't cover here is the combined mode, and that's because the combined mode is really unknown. I can probably guess a little bit, but neither of these have instructions that show you the combined mode, and we don't know what the hardware is going to look like. This one we don't have the trailer, and this one we don't have the combiner hardware, which apparently is going to be separate. So there's no way to say. So we're going to leave that out of this review. But if you look going by the score, FansToys spoiler is going to win this one. And that's not too much of a surprise, honestly. They always seem to one-up the company that comes out first. X-Transbot did a really good job on this guy. I thought it was a great release. And it was also kind of one of the first releases where you're like, what? Maybe X-Transbots really is a company that can go up against the likes of FansToys. So this was a great release. But then FansToys comes out and knocks it out of the park. What's an indicator to this? This figure is still available for purchase. You can go right now and buy this figure for $50 from TF Source or any other typical retailer. My retailer of choice is Toy Dojo, so I would go buy this from there. FansToys spoiler is not available. It's pretty much sold out everywhere. So that should also kind of give you a indicator as to the desirability of these sets. But like I said, if you have this already, it's a really good price point, a really good set for a Masterpiece Menasor. And so if you have this, then you win, right? Still a good set. So that's really it for today. Thanks for watching. I do have a couple other figures to review before we get our next new figure to take a look at, which I believe is probably going to be either FansToys or it's going to be the Iron Trans Star Saber. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.